The summer of 1977 looked ordinary when buses rolled beneath the oaks and pines and stopped at Camp Scott, a Girl Scout camp in the hills of Mays County, Oklahoma. Luggage thumped onto gravel, mothers smoothed hair, counselors lifted clipboards and promised crafts, creeks, and songs by the fire. Parents believed them. Camp is supposed to be a bubble where the sharp edges of the world stay outside the fence, which is why everyone waved and let the buses pull away. In the Kiowa unit, canvas tents stood on wooden platforms, their flaps facing a fan of trees. 12-year-old Lori Lee Farmer, 10-year-old Denise Milner, and 8-year-old Michelle Hughes were assigned to Tent 8, the far tent at the end of the path. They met like strangers do: name, age, pets, favorite snack. Lori was careful and kind. Denise was shy, working up courage for her first night away. Michelle was bright, with restless energy. Together they arranged sleeping bags and promised to look out for one another. What no one told them was that weeks earlier during staff orientation, a counselor found a note stuffed in a donut box. 3 Girl Scouts will be murdered, it warned. The paper was tossed out as a sick joke. There had been other oddities: food missing from storage, footprints where no one should have been, but warnings without a suspect feel like superstition. The camp pressed on. Schedules were set, songs rehearsed, badges planned. The story of the note became a shrug, then a rumor, then nothing at all. June 12th arrived with heat bleeding into thunderheads. By night the rain came steady, pattering on canvas, running in seams. Counselors swept flashlights through the trees and called lights out. Denise cried and then apologized for crying. A counselor promised that morning would help. In the dark, someone heard twigs snap beyond the tents, a small sound the storm erased. Somewhere after midnight, a blade slit the back wall of Tent 8. The canvas folded like a mouth. The 3 girls who had just promised to be brave did not have time to scream. What happened was fast and terrible. The intruder bound the girls, beat them, and in Denise's case, committed a sexual assault. Sleeping bags dragged, a body struck the platform with a dull thud, and rain swallowed the rest of the noise. When the attacker left, the back wall hung open, and the little room of blankets and socks looked ransacked by a storm that had learned how to use its hands. A trail of small things: torn cloth, a dropped item, a smear, pointed toward the trees, and then turned into darkness. At dawn, a counselor walked the path toward the showers and saw shapes where there should be none, bundled forms just off the trail. At first, the brain said trunks, bags, anything else. Then it refused the lie. She ran. Radios crackled. Adults converged with a frantic calm. Children were gathered, told to pack, told they were going home early. Some cheered without understanding. Others stared at the counselor's hands and began to cry. The buses idled in the wet morning air. Deputies found rope and duct tape, a crowbar, and a flashlight with newspaper stuffed under the lens to dim the beam. Mud showed prints moving in and out of Kiowa. Inside Tent 8, the slit in the canvas gaped like a wound. Lori Lee Farmer, Denise Milner, and Michelle Hughes had been beaten and strangled. Denise had been assaulted. The brutality appalled even veteran officers. When the news reached living rooms across Oklahoma, a simple question cut through every house: how could this happen here? Investigators drew lines on maps: a watcher in the woods, a cut in the canvas, a path to the tree line, a return for cover and belongings. Counselors repeated their rounds for detectives. Parents were interviewed. Locals were questioned at kitchen tables. The forgotten note returned like a curse no one had bothered to read. It felt planned and practiced, someone studying the unit until the rain could hide the approach. The case demanded a name. Before long, an old name rose back to the surface. Gene Leroy Hart had escaped from prison in 1973 while serving time for rape and kidnapping. A Cherokee man from the area, he was rumored to be hiding in the hills with help from people who knew every draw and ravine. Searchers pushed into the green with dogs. Helicopters beat the air. In a nearby cave, officers found tape, photographs, and items that looked too much like the tools used at Kiowa. Detectives believed they had their man. The manhunt grew, and with it, a rift that had been in the county for generations. Some locals, especially among the Cherokee, believed Hart was hunted not only for what he might have done, but for who he was. Others, including many terrified parents, saw a predator moving through their backyards. Posters went up. Tips flared and died. Deputies ate cold food off car hoods and slept badly in school gyms. Meanwhile, Camp Scott closed its gates. The mess hall was padlocked, the lake went still, the platforms began their slow tilt back into the earth. Hart was captured the following April. His trial drew packed galleries. Prosecutors laid out hair and fiber comparisons, photographs from the cave, medical reports, and timelines. The defense attacked the science, the chain of custody, and the biases of men who wanted a suspect more than the truth. In a verdict that stunned the families, the jury acquitted him. He returned to prison on the earlier case and died of a heart attack 2 years later. The word unsolved settled over the case like weather. Evidence boxes waited. As DNA testing improved, analysts revisited what the rain and years had not erased. The results spoke in cautious phrases, partial profiles, statistical ranges, but they tended to point toward Hart more than toward anyone else. They did not move the law. The acquittal stood, and no courtroom could be reopened. For the families, those modern numbers were not a door. They were another room in the same house of grief. The murders changed how parents measured risk. Camps rewrote manuals, doubled night patrols, widened background checks, cut new lines of light along perimeters. None of it felt like enough. You cannot regulate away the memory of a slashed tent. Across Oklahoma, permission slips were signed with a pause and an ache. Children still wanted camp. Parents still wanted courage for them. Fear sat beside both, like a chair no one invited. Camp Scott never reopened. The trails went to seed, the platforms weathered and slumped, the archery range sank into tall grass. Locals will tell you the place feels different, as if the trees learned a truth they cannot unknow. Maybe that is superstition, and maybe it is how landscapes remember. If you stand on the public road and listen, the wind in the leaves can sound like canvas moving, which is only wind, and also the echo of a night when someone moved while others slept and never came back out of the trees. What endures are the girls. Photographs show 3 bright faces made of ordinary details: Lori's careful handwriting in a letter about rain, Denise's half-brave smile as she tried the adventure on, Michelle's hands already reaching for the next thing. Say their names, and the story organizes around what was stolen from them: time, promise, and the simple certainty that adults can keep children safe. That is why the case still hurts, and why the Hill Country seems to hold its breath when the tale is told again. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders endure because they broke a promise. A camp promises sanctuary, childhood promises time. That night took both. The ignored warning, the cut canvas, the path into the trees. Each is a lantern lifted to show where the watch failed and where duty slipped. The investigation will be debated for as long as it is read, but the lesson it carries is plain. Safety is not a brochure, it is a practice, and it begins with believing danger when it whispers. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.